What I wanted you to understand is that we today have Muslims that make different contributions. You're listening to Khutbah in Bayina campus. Bayina is a name, it's a label. There are other educational institutes. There's Zaytuna, there's Al-Maghrib, there's Mishkat University. There are universities around the world teaching Muslims in some capacity or the other. There are da'wah organizations, there are relief organizations. And in America, for example, we have a lot of 4-letter organizations, ISNA, ICNA, 3-letter organizations like, MAS, etc., etc. We have all these organizations, and some people sometimes say, why do we have so many different organizations? The Muslims should be united. We should all just be one. Even in the Quran, did Allah separate and distinguish the Muhajirun with a label and the Ansar with a label? Yeah, He did. Based on the contribution they made, isn't it? Every one of these organizations, every one of these efforts has a unique contribution to make. Perhaps even in a unique community. We're blessed to live in a city where there are tons and tons of masajid. So what if they're not under one organizational banner? So what? So what if some people came together and started praying inside of a storefront and then they raised enough money to build a masjid? That's the story of lots of masajid. But these masajid are not in competition with each other. These are all, and if you're a volunteer at one of them, you're a part of one of them, then you're part of something good. This is not division. But the moment you start using these words, these beautiful words, these organizational names, which basically represent a contribution to our deen, an effort that's being made to serve our deen. When you start using these names to distinguish yourself from another organization and talk about how much better you are or how in competition you are, then these very Islamic organizational names become filthy words. If Muhajirun and Ansar can become filthy words, if they can become smelly words, then what's to say of any other label, any other school of thought, any other madrasa, any other masjid? We have to think very clearly about what the Prophet is saying, alayhi salatu wasalam. But then when he said this, there's another narration here. Somebody came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, but he kicked him. He kicked him. And what was the Prophet's response to he kicked him? You know what he said? He said, La ba's. No problem. Don't worry about it. No big deal. No big deal. How is it not a big deal? He kicked him. Rasulullah ﷺ is teaching us something very powerful. Sometimes Muslims have arguments among each other. And sometimes things get ugly. And when they get ugly, your temper flares. And you want revenge, you want justice for what happened. Somebody has to pay. And when you're calling for justice and making your voice heard and you're raising your voice and you're gathering people around you, reminding them of what one Muslim has done against another Muslim, you are creating division in the name of justice. And you need to learn the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ when he says, you need to let this go and make this not a big deal. Because when you blow this out of proportion, the price will not just be paid. You're not just seeking justice, you're causing a lot of problems in your pursuit of justice. You're making way too much noise for something that can be handled much better, much more quietly, in a much more civil way, in a much less provocative way. Look, it was two people arguing with each other at a well. Something bad happened, fine, but it's two people. But in a split second, it's the entire group of the Muhajirun, it's the entire group of the Ansar. How quickly something small became something big. One can just, man, I lost my temper, sorry, I had a long day, I had a headache, I don't know what got into me, I apologize, I shouldn't have kicked you. Done. Finished. You don't have to make a bigger deal out of it. But there are those who would love to make a bigger deal out of it. There are those who capitalize. They hope that something small happens, a spark happens, and they can turn it into a forest fire. There are people who wait for that opportunity. And you have to want that. That is a reality that will always exist. There will be people that will find the differences. There are people that are so sick in their minds. They'll listen to this sheikh, that sheikh, this imam, that imam, and then they'll know that they have a difference of opinion on some issue. And they'll purposely go, by the way, do you know what they say about this issue? They have a difference with you. And then because they want to see, they find it entertaining. They don't watch sports where people are boxing each other. They'd rather Islamic groups, scholars, imams, speakers, they argue with each other. They debate with each other. This is their sport. This is their entertainment. It's sick. That's sick. When this fight broke out, the Prophet ﷺ basically gave the advice to diffuse the situation.
كتاب الله دستوري وخير الخلق أسوتنا